Good evening, everyone. This would be a slight difference from our regular second Tuesday of the month uh, webinar. This is supposed to be the regular AeHIN Regional Enterprise Architecture Council for Health, but our designated speaker would not be available tonight. So we're taking over the slot and using it for a topic that has been frequently from AeHIN. We'd like to share with you our 8-year experience conducting online meetings at the Asia eHealth Information Network, and hopefully also learn from the people in the audience on things that they also learned while they conducted their own webinars as well. So let me just present my slides. Chase already introduced ourselves. For disclosures, myself and Charisse do not have any financial interests in any of the technologies presented. In the Philippines, Charisse and I have been supporting local organizations in conducting online meetings, many of which are for continuing medical education. Asia eHealth Information Network specifically maintains a subscription to GoToWebinar, which goes up to 500 seats. So the outline of our talk combined would be the context, the reasons why we think online meetings are getting increased interest amongst practitioners, a brief introduction on how the AeHIN webinar started, what we have learned over the past 8 years, and these are not exhaustive, these are just the highlights of the lessons that we distilled from the years that we've been conducting online meetings. And then I'll pass on the microphone to Charisse, who will present her part of the online meeting, the very difficult and very tedious work of administering the online meetings. And then I'll come back and share some best practices and lessons learned. And hopefully we can have an open forum later on and ask the people in the meeting what would be their own tips with regards conducting online meetings. So I guess everyone is at home. COVID-19 is here to stay, and I think there will be more situations that are similar in the future. There will be a new name, there will be a new virus, and we will be at home again, afraid to go out and trying to minimize our interactions. But meetings are very important to us. It's a way for us to keep our stakeholders informed. But again, as I said, with face-to-face meetings, there are risks of transmission. And currently, many organizations are now looking at online meetings to replace face-to-face meetings. We've just received 2 requests to convert their large meeting between 100 to 200 people face-to-face into online meetings. And if any one of you are interested in also converting your meetings to online meetings, please let us know and we will be able to help you. So very quickly, I guess I don't have to explain this because you are actually online and joining us. Online meetings are those where participants are in different locations and use internet-connected computers or mobile phones to join a discussion. And something about the Asia eHealth Information Network, we were established in 2012 with support from WHO. Our mission is to support countries with their national eHealth strategy and implementation. And early on, as far back as 2012, we were using WHO's teleconferencing platform, which was Cisco WebEx, to conduct our online meetings because our membership spread across 25 countries. And we needed a platform to conduct meeting amongst ourselves. Later on, when we became independent from WHO, we shifted to GoToWebinar / GoToMeeting. So that's some of the few benefits of online meetings, and you might have some of your own, and I'd appreciate to hear from you later on at the open forum. It saves costs on travel, so we can stay where we are as long as we have an internet-connected device. We can join that meeting. It maximizes the use of our time, the time that we usually lose traveling to the meeting place, especially in Metro Manila. where traffic is terrible. It's very convenient to the participant, and I think because of the constraints of the online meeting platforms and the the chaos that results when people speak all at the same time in an online meeting, and therefore they are more wary and more respectful of taking turns. I think the meetings could be more organized when you have online meetings. There are also disadvantages because you're not seeing the video of the person, or if you're seeing the video of the person, you're missing out on some non-verbal cues, which are sometimes very important when you're conducting meetings. Online meetings are very, very technology dependent, and technology that you use for online meetings are multifactorial, and many of these technology components, if at least one of these components fail, whether it's hardware or network or any other component, the user's experience diminishes. And as a matter of fact, we've seen online meetings that did not push through at all because one technology component failed. So there's a higher chance of online meetings not pushing through because of technology failure. And lastly, but not the least, if not well managed, an online meeting will be unproductive and it will cause frustration to the participants, making them afraid to join another online meeting. So I hope we would be able to avoid those types of meetings. Again, later on in the open forum, feel free to share your own disadvantages that you've seen participating in online meetings. So this is just a quick ABC of online meetings that I've come up with. There might be more in your list, and there are actually really more when you listen to Charis's part. You will see also the complexity that goes behind preparing and conducting online meetings. So my ABC is A for actors, B for bridge, and C for connectivity. A for actors means being sure who are the people participating in the meeting. And these are the minimum types of people in the meeting. The lead organizer or the convener, and this person is very important because he or she sets the agenda and also sets the expected outcome from the meeting. This is very important because online meetings tend to become very boring because you can't really be very interactive. So if you are a participant or a resource speaker and you don't know the agenda and the expected outcome, you tend to lose sight and attention of the meeting, and you get to lag off and slack off from the meeting. If you are a resource person, that means you will be definitely called to speak and present in the meeting. So that means this resource person needs to have all the technology components working wherever he or she is presenting. If you're the audience, you don't need and you may not have a speaking part in the meeting, and all you need to do is to listen, but you are participating because at some point you might be asked for your comments or for some decision making. And last but not the least is the administrator who handles the technology components, like the bridge and the connectivity. And I'd like to underscore all other tasks needed to make the meeting successful. And Charis will be enumerating them later on at her part. For the bridge, this is basically just the technology that you're going to use in the meeting. I've just come up with a short list here. There are other teleconferencing platforms that are being used. We have Cisco WebEx. This is what we use right now at St. Luke's, and this is what we used at WHO before in 2012. There's GoToMeeting, who also runs GoToWebinar. So has the same functionalities as Cisco WebEx. There's Zoom, one of the newcomers, came in later than Cisco WebEx and GoToMeeting. But as you can see, the number of video screens are very impressive. I have not yet attended a GoToMeeting with this many participants sharing their video. Usually, I experienced some problems with connectivity from 5 to 6 participants sharing their video. So I still have to confirm whether Zoom will perform as well. With how many people are here? I think there are 25 people in this screen. Skype was actually the original platform that I've been using as far back as 2005, 2006. We use this for e-learning. We conducted training to barangay health workers in Capiz using Skype. Very, very reliable. And recently I discovered that Skype had near real-time transcriptioning services. So if you conducted a video conference and you turned on the feature for transcribing, Skype would actually be converting the speech that I'm saying right now into text under one of the screens in Skype. I don't know if the other platforms also have that feature. Jitsi is an open source platform. We've been using this for our project with GIZ on the Open Insurance Management Information System, and has been very, very reliable. It works well on the phone. Actually, everyone that I've shown previously also works well on the mobile phone. We've not yet seen this much 12 concurrent participants. I've not seen, not attended a meeting yet in Jitsi with 12, but I've attended at least, I think, 7, but only 1 or 2 would be sharing their video. Hangout is Google, so with all the might and power of Google, they also have their own video conferencing platform. They both have the free and the enterprise versions. And video is the platform that the Telemedicine Development Center of Asia is using, based in Kyushu University in Fukuoka, for which PGH, St. Luke's, and many other local hospitals are also participating in. We just had one last Thursday with Kathmandu, Japan, and we were able to do this successfully as well. It also has a mobile version, but also requires more engineering capabilities for each facility that is participating. So we'll have a separate webinar on comparing these different bridges. But just remember, you need a bridge, and the bridge is where all the participants in the meeting will converge in the hour of the meeting. C is connectivity, and connectivity is basically the internet connection used by the computers or mobile phones of the participants as they join the meeting. And in general, the faster the better, but it's not always like that. Sometimes you have very fast internet, but for some reason, your user experience is still underwhelming. At the minimum, the lead organizer and resource person should have at least 2 megabytes speed to the internet. Lower speeds may compromise their part in the meeting, and their voices might be choppy, and the participants may not be able to hear what they are presenting. The nice thing about the platforms is even if this happens, they actually fix the choppy part and they put them together so that the recording is much, much better than the actual meeting. It would be good to check your speed if you're attending remotely at www.speedtest.net, because that would give an inkling of what will be your experience in the actual meeting. So the most common complaint is the online meeting was choppy and the performance was poor, and most commonly the person participating was in an area where mobile data speeds were not really optimal. So what to look for at teleconferencing platform? This is topic for another webinar, and in one word, to me, I think support is the most important, because if you need help, technical help from the vendor, it would be good if you actually had a a license or subscription with them so that you're sure that they're there to support your actual meeting or your actual conference. Okay, so I'll pass the floor now to Charisse, and she will be presenting the hard part, which is everything that happens before, during, and after an actual meeting that does not relate to the people who are making the presentations. So this is hidden from most of us, but if an online meeting is very successful, it's because there's very good administration. So I'll pass the floor to Charisse for her slides. Charisse.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Alvin. Okay, so hello everyone. This is Cha. I will now share how we manage our calls and webinars in AeHIN. You can also share your ideas in the chat box while I'm talking. And if you lose me, please feel free to send me a message because I'm having problems with my internet connection lately. Okay, so these are based on our experience and on the platform we are currently using, which is GoToWebinar. There are lots of platforms available, as mentioned earlier by Dr. Alvin. So you can use any platform you are comfortable using. It all depends on your needs and your budget. So in AeHIN, we follow these 5 steps in doing our webinars, but the report part is mostly for our local AeHIN Hour coordinators, so we can learn from their webinar experiences as well. So in scheduling calls, it is helpful to make a regular schedule because it can help the information stick with your webinar viewers or meeting attendees. And it also helps lessen the number of people dropping off from your calls. We schedule webinars every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Manila time, like this slot. So we coordinate with our speakers and offer them schedules. For example, we offer the first or third Tuesday of the month to see if it would work for them. So we do this to help maintain a regular schedule in AeHIN. But if none of the options we offered works, we work around the schedule of the speaker's availability. So as you can see on this slide, here are the registration links to our webinars. So please feel free to join us every Tuesday. If you notice, we have also provided short links that lead to each webinar series, so our participants can easily register and re-enter the webinar rooms. As you can see here, for COIL, it's COIL Webinars 2020, and so on. You just have to change this part at the beginning of the link. Also, if you are working in different time zones like we do, there are free tools on the internet that help you find the best time for your group. In our case, we use Doodle. If you're familiar with it, it's doodle.com. You can access it there for free. You can create a poll containing schedules that you want to propose, and then your team will answer, and you can quickly oversee the availability of your meeting attendees. I believe in Doodle, it shows the equivalent time in your time zones. For example, I set the time in Manila time. You will see what time it is in your location. And also, I use timeanddate.com to recheck if I got the time zones correctly. It also indicates whether the time is out of office hours or if there are holidays in a certain country. And then sending calendar invites, like Google Calendar invites, also helps in reminding participants of your calls. And then we proceed to the room arrangement. So once your schedule is determined, you create your room. It depends on the platform you are using actually, but I believe there are options for you to set a room, whether it should be a one-time meeting room or a recurring room. So a one-time meeting room can be opened at the schedule you have set, and once you are done using it, it cannot be used again. But you also have the recurring rooms, which you can open whenever you need. So it's more flexible and there are options for you to set a password, but it is not required. So it depends on you whether you set it or not. And then we proceed to the registrations, which are more common in webinars, I think, than in meeting rooms. So here's a sample of a registration page in AeHIN. I have entered meeting rooms before in Zoom and other platforms, but they only require your name and email address, probably because meeting rooms have more fixed participants compared to webinars. So in AeHIN, we typically ask the name and email address of the participants so we know how to contact them. And we also ask additional information like the country, field of expertise, and in which sector the person works in to assess how far our webinars have reached geographically and see the range of experts we get to interact with. It is also important to note that registration forms must not request sensitive data like bank accounts because there are webinars that require payments, I think. So it's better if we have provisions on private data privacy. Okay, so next we proceed to the next part, which is invitations. So for meeting invitations, a period of 1 week to 3 days is okay. This is for online meetings. It is also helpful to send out your meeting agenda so your meeting participants can prepare before joining the call. But for webinars, we recommend at least 1 week of registration period because the earlier you invite your participants, the better. Because longer registration periods may help increase participants since your contacts can share the event information to more potential participants. Depends of what the webinar is about, what they will learn from it, and how they can join or participate in your webinars. Also, you can make use of your mailing lists and social media pages. And then we proceed to the call or webinar proper. For the call and webinar proper, for both online meetings and webinars, opening the room will at least 30 to 15 minutes before the call helps because it gives you time to prepare, like checking your audio and your slides while your participants are coming in. For webinars, we do test runs before the call, sometimes a day or a week before, depending on the speaker's availability. Be sure to orient your speakers. Aside from securing a computer and stable internet connection, you must inform them how the webinar will be conducted, like how to use the platform, how many minutes is allotted for the lecture or the Q&A, and then how you proceed to the Q&A portion. In AeHIN, we usually have 1 hour of webinars or calls. We mostly make use of the microphone and the share screen option. This also helps save bandwidth during the calls because I think webcams demand a bigger bandwidth. And then for the webinar program, we give a brief introduction. We give around 30 to 45 minutes for the lecture time, which depends on the topics being discussed, and the remaining time is for the Q&A. Questions are usually sent through the chat because this helps make the Q&A more manageable. There are options in the webinar room that we are using to let participants ask questions through the microphone, but it consumes more time for a 1 hour webinar. So the chat option seems a better option. If you want to exhibit more interaction in your webinars and you are able to invite a panelist, you can also give them the mic controls and let them ask their own questions through the microphone. Again, this just depends on how you manage the whole hour for your webinars. And then we proceed to the post-webinar, the evaluation and reports. So for webinars, we evaluate our sessions by checking who our participants were. We also send an evaluation form at least an hour after the session. So we ask how the topic was covered, were they able to use the platform well, are there remaining questions in the topic, and if they have other comments and suggestions. In AeHIN, we use Google Forms since it's faster to use, but you can explore other form services that you think would work best for you. And the things found in the evaluation form are also the things we use for our report to our partners. It's also what we request from our local AeHIN hour coordinators. This is how we learn from each other's best practices. And then we also have in AeHIN archiving. We archive our sessions. The record option is available in various platforms. They are helpful, especially if you're working in different time zones like we do, because there are other participants who missed the webinar. So we make them available online so they can view it after the session. But of course, it also depends on your resource person if they allow you to share the materials. So it's best to ask for consent before the session. Okay, so I have another presentation. I will briefly show you how GoToWebinar looks when you're an organizer because it looks different when you're a presenter.
While Charisse is setting up, feel free to either ask a question or participate in the chat. Go ahead, Charisse.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Alvin. Here's a peek of the fundamental GoToWebinar features that a speaker uses. Here is the microphone, the webcam, and the share screen button. So if you notice, there are other panels in this GoToWebinar application here in this part. You do not need to focus on them all at once. And as a speaker, you will mostly just be using the microphone, the webcam, and the share screen options to present your lecture. When you minimize this panel using this arrow, you can use the main features here. So this will all be minimized when you click this arrow. And while going on with your presentation, you can just click this again to mute or unmute yourself to stop sharing anything. And you might be wondering why you are seeing these things differently on your screen. It's because there are different roles in a webinar room. So the webinar organizers and attendees have different views. As an organizer, this is what you will see because you're the one controlling the whole webinar room. And as a participant, you most probably will just see the microphone, and you can only access it if the webinar organizer gives you access. So you can just unmute your microphone if you're granted these roles. I think that's it, Dr. Alvin.
Okay, thank you, Charisse. So I'll get the screen again. And because Charisse is the administrator, she will be the one giving me control of the screen again. These things are the things that we don't see as participants, but can help make or break the online meeting if you're unable to share your screen. Sometimes, as a safety measure, I also email my PowerPoint slides to Charisse so that just in case I'm unable to share my screen, she can project my slides and I can just call my slides by number. So just two more slides, some best practice and lessons learned over the 8 years. And again, this is just a few of them. I cannot underemphasize practicing before the event, especially for first-time lead organizer and resource persons. Practicing um, helps us identify what would be the potential problems in the actual meeting, and we could address those. So some of the common problems we've seen is that they were connecting in a place where there's very poor internet connection. They were using a microphone that was faulty. They embedded video, which is my last bullet. They embedded video in their slides, and when you play video in an existing teleconferencing platform, if you do not inform the administrator ahead of time, that video will not be displayed correctly. Is know your environment. You need to see the place where you are going to conduct the online meeting. And if it's just going to be your house, then that's no problem. But if it's going to be in an auditorium where there will be 200 people in the audience, you'll have a speaker in the podium, and you want to project the speaker's laptop to other participants who are joining remotely, that is a very complex environment, and you need to tell the administrator ahead of time that that is going to be your setup. Why? Because the microphone, the distance of the laptop from the speaker, the ability to control the laptop remotely while the administrator is not actually on stage but in a side table, these things are very complex, and Charisse has been very, very experienced with this, having conducted several of these with the Philippine Dermatological Society. But every event in a new place is always a new adventure for Charisse. And I admire her for really putting herself, all of herself, in identifying the environment way, way ahead of time. I think we're going to use this again, Charisse, for the enterprise architecture conference. So again, we have to understand the environment of the EA conference. Also, it would be good if you know what benefit the online meeting will be for your audience so that you keep it at the back of your head and make sure that this benefit is clear to your audience by the end of the meeting. And that's why we're presenting our best practice and lessons learned, because this webinar is about how we can improve the way we conduct our online meetings. Having a clear agenda makes you keep time. Setting objectives for a meeting, whether the agenda items are for information or for decision, in most of the bridge technologies or the teleconferencing platforms, you can ask the audience to vote. So you can actually project on a PowerPoint slide the item for decision making and ask them to vote using the voting utility of your teleconferencing platform. So it also helps you count how many people are voting for or against a particular motion. Take turns speaking is easy to control, but that's only because the administrator is controlling all our microphones at the same time. If all of you actually turned on your microphone, number one, it's going to eat the bandwidth, and number two, it's going to be a cacophony of "Can you hear me? Can you hear me?" And that can really eat up a lot of the online meeting time. So the way AeHIN conducts our small meetings between 5 to 7 people is that one person actually speaks, and then I say over after I'm finished speaking, and then the next person would then turn on or her microphone and start speaking, and I would mute my microphone. This has been this has become intuitive to us, but I've been joining other meetings where this turn on and turn off microphone system is not very obvious, and you can get a lot of colliding people who are speaking at the same time, and it doesn't really make good for a that doesn't make for a good online meeting. Also, minimize the use of technology. Sometimes you'd like to connect to your laptop or to your mobile phone, a headset, or a wireless Bluetooth headphone, or something else. The bare minimum components, the better, so that if that component fails, then you know that it's something that you need to discard. So you'd like to control the number of components that might fail. So the fewer technologies that you use, the better. And I think I already mentioned, do not embed video in your slides. And for the last slide, we're shifting to open forum. If you have any suggestions of your own on how to conduct an online meeting, benefits, disadvantages, just let us know. We are using GoToWebinar. That means everyone is joining with their microphone on mute. But if you want to speak, you can raise your hand, and Charisse can give you the platform. Charisse, is that easy for GoToWebinar? Over.
As an organizer, Dr. Alvin, yes, that's easy to do in GoToWebinar, but we have to be sure that the participant also has a microphone access.
All right. So for now, we're going to take questions using the chat box, the questions box, right, Charisse?
Yes, Dr. Alvin.
Okay. I don't think we have questions right now.
We have a few questions, Dr. Alvin.
Go ahead.
Also, yes, I'll just share my slide first. Okay, so the first question is, can we add other fields like mobile number, company, questions on the registration page? Yes, the registration page is actually customizable. So what we do with our local in our coordinators, we ask them what fields do they want to be included aside from the field of expertise and the sectors that we originally have in the forms. But we have to be careful in the fields that we put in the registration form, especially if it involves personal details. And the next question is, are you open for collaboration? I think it's Dr. Alvin who can answer this.
Yeah, actually, so I think for the first question, where the fields are customizable, what I wanted to add there is that that's the reason we chose a supported platform like GoToMeeting and GoToWebinar because of of the Data Privacy Act. When you start collecting personal information, your organization actually starts taking risk in the management of those personal information like name, address, email addresses. So, as an organization, AeHIN did not want to take on that risk. So we took on a commercial subscription from GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar, and you can the other platforms you can take a commercial subscription, and that in a way alleviates us of the pressure to maintain the privacy of the subscription list of the people joining our webinar. That's also an important thing if you're a small organization and you don't have enough security people helping you out. It's good to, in quotation marks, outsource the the maintenance of the people who are signing up, who are registering to that commercial company. And of course, the same principles of personal information controller and personal information processor apply. So in this case, for example, in this call, the personal information controller is AeHIN and the personal information processor is GoToMeeting. And GoToMeeting has its own terms and conditions, which you read when you were registering for this webinar. So those things are very minor, but are very important when you start offering your online meetings. On the second question about partnerships, yes. So AeHIN has a 500-seat GoToWebinar. So if you have a lecture and you think you need to reach 500 people and you want them to register securely, we have a system by which you can use our webinar platform. There are conditions, however, like you cannot feature tobacco, you cannot feature alcohol beverages, you cannot feature branded pharmaceutical products. But I think for many of these constraints, as long as you know them and you follow them, then everything will be fine. There will be a service fee and a management fee because it will entail the time of Charis. And also, it will depend on how much of your own internal management you will put in. Because sometimes we've had partners like the Sri Lankans. Once Charis opens the meeting room, the Sri Lankans take over. So that's a very minimal fee for them. But if you are going to have to ask Charisse also for her time to administer and do the other tasks of an administrator, then that will be a separate discussion because then that will entail more time from Charisse. And she also has commitments with other professional societies. So we need to discuss that way ahead of time. Do you have other questions?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Alvin. The next question is, audio is very important during webinars. Do you use a specialized microphone or just rely on laptop microphone? Do you use a headset? Actually, if you use a laptop microphone, it's okay, it would work, but I would still prefer using a headset. If you are using Mac, I think the audio quality is okay. It's better than in Windows laptops. But I would suggest using condenser microphones. There are condenser microphones that can be connected to your laptop using USB, and you can actually use microphones that are used in auditoriums, but you have to use an audio mixer to connect it to GoToWebinar. I think one of the good parts in GoToWebinar is it's very intuitive. You can connect streaming devices such as professional microphones and professional cameras, and it will be able to detect your equipment. But if you're doing simple online meetings and webinars, I think a headset would work.
Charisse, for myself, I'm not using any additional headset or microphone. And I think one of the
Mhm.
participants already complained to me that my audio was choppy earlier on. I don't know if we can blame the lack of a microphone or that, but that's very important for me to know because maybe next time I will use a headset. But that headset needs to be pre-tested before you actually use it.
We have another question, Dr. Alvin. If you're an admin, do you have features like mute all participants? Yes, it is available here in GoToWebinar. If you have organizer controls, you can mute and unmute all participants, but you can also mute or unmute them individually. And then if you have a guest, how long do they usually need to get to use the platform? I recommend testing the webinar platform at least 30 minutes, given that you have already installed and opened the webinar room in the laptop that you'll be using. because most speakers are just using the microphone option, the webcam, and the share screen. So they just have to familiarize themselves on where to find these features and where they can read the questions in case you cannot support them in reading the questions.
I wanted to add, Charisse, what was the last question?
If
Uh,
you have a guest, how long do they usually need to get to use the platform?
well, it depends. I think Charisse has had good experience 30 minutes before the event. Charisse, right?
Yes.
30 minutes. It's very risky to get a first time resource person connecting to the platform just 30 minutes before the actual speaking engagement. I would really discourage that. But if a speaker has previous experience using an online system and it's go to meeting or go to webinar, then I would be more comfortable because that means they've done this before. Um, if there's a new speaker and we've had very good success when we give them training at least a day before or a week before, that works very well. But if the speaker is can only join like just before the actual event, I would ask him to come in maybe 2 hours before. Charisse, what do you think? Over.
Yes, Dr. Alvin. Actually, I do test runs with speakers at least a week before or a day before. But if they're unavailable, I open the webinar room at least an hour before the session, given that they have already installed the program in their computer. But if you try to let them use the platform for 30 minutes on their own, I think they can manage it as long as you have guided them before the actual session. There is another question, Dr. Alvin. So I've noticed that there was a maximum limit of 500 for audience. Adding licenses is expensive. Is there a way around this if webinar participants is more than 500?
Go ahead, Charisse. I think you've done that before, right?
Yes, actually, in 2017, 2018, we tried using GoToWebinar, and we used to have only 100 seats for all the participants. And the participants who are trying to log in after that 100 capacity, they're all blacked out. So we tried to extend our webinars through Facebook and the UP Manila live streaming. But if you want to solely use GoToWebinar, I think the only way for you to do it is to increase your subscription. But the attendees, if there's no problems like COVID-19, you can use one email address for 5 people, for example, to be in a room and they can all watch the webinar together. But if you want to connect individually, you really have to add the licenses to increase the seats available for all participants.
My own version answer to the question is it depends on the content that you have that you want to present. If it's a publicly available content that you want to be seen by as many people as possible, then you can just go to Facebook Live or YouTube Live, and it might have the same effect. But if you need registration, then you might want to go to a commercially supported platform. Again, it goes down to the risks that your organization is willing to take on. If you're not collecting names anyway, so you can just use any open source platform. But if you are particular about having people register and protecting their personal information, it's good to have a commercially supported platform to use. So again, it depends on the content, the accessibility of the public to your content, and the risks that your organization are willing to take on in managing personal information.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Alvin.
Dr. Peter has a question.
Yes. Is the only drawback of the non-seated attendee that they cannot participate, no certificate, etc.? I think yes, Dr. Peter, because usually in AeHIN we have our sessions recorded. So if you cannot join the live lecture, you can still access it online. But if, for example, you're attending a webinar like UP Med webinars, since we apply for CPD units and it's only a one-time session that we have applied, you can only have points or certificate if you watch the live webinar. So if you cannot catch it, then you won't be able to receive your certificate. Do you have anything to add, Dr. Alvin?
None. I think there are many tools that are available. I really encourage you to experiment with some of them. I've been a participant with Zoom. I've been a resource person on video. Of course, we're using WebEx in our hospital right now. So and I see that there's really a pattern. You know, they have very common features, but some are really easier to use than others. Of course, we have a bias for GoToMeeting and GoToWebinar because we have a subscription. But Zoom has been very easy to use, especially when I'm driving. But don't follow my example. I join teleconferences while I'm in the car driving. Maybe some of you are doing this also. And it's not that easy compared to other platforms. So I encourage you in the context of COVID-19, let's experiment, let's share experiences, and then let's continue these discussions. Maybe not on a Tuesday night because these are the e-health nights of AeHIN, but we can have a regular session. We're going to invite other professors from other AeHIN countries to present how they're doing things. So we'd like you to join us. If you want to present your own experience, let us know. We'll give you the floor. But I think we need to do this well. The kids are at home. There's no class Tuesday to Friday. Our teachers don't know how to use online teaching. So I think let's just do this now because when COVID-20 and COVID-21 comes in, at least our society is much more prepared with all of these teleconferencing capabilities. Any more questions, chat?
There are no more questions, Dr. Alvin. I think
Is Dr. Bunchay
there's
online?
Yes. Should I? Hello, Dr. Bunchay. I passed the mic
Maybe Dr.
control.
Bunchay is not ready.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, there you are, my boss.
Oh, okay. Thank you for let me have participate in this discussion. Thank you everyone for coming to this webinar. We are the network of sharing knowledge. I learned quite a lot from Char, our secretariat, about how to conduct the online meeting and using the web, the GoToMeeting. And this is just the insight to the participant that we can have this platform because of we are working with the developing partner and they supporting us on this. So we should utilizing this as much as we can, so we can get benefit, the most benefit from this platform. And I really sure that Cha, our secretariat are ready and ready to help and anyone who would like to share the knowledge.
Okay, Dr. Bunchay, I think there's a comment from Dr. Jason.
Hi, Alvin.
Oh, yeah. Hi.
I just want to really give you all a real compliment, if I may. You are leading edge. You're doing exactly what needs to be done and is being considered. For example, they're thinking about taking hymns into some kind of a virtual set of sessions. The times have changed, and you're right there with 8 years of experience of having done this. And thank you. I am going to take this recording. I'm going to share it with the Open Group's Vice President of Events and Marketing, and I'm sure because we have a meeting upcoming in Mumbai. Hasn't been canceled yet. We'll see. But this is the future. You have addressed it in very real time, and I would like to see your recording go viral. So thank you.
Thank you, Jason. So we'll have you again the next meetings. By the way, on April 21, the architecture speaker will be Dr. Palab Saha. So I hope you'll be there as well. And thank you very much, everyone. Good night. Let's have this again. I don't know if it's going to be tomorrow night or another night next week, but definitely once we get the speakers or some who are willing to be speakers, let us know, and we'll schedule you. We'll schedule you for one of the webinars. So good night, everyone. Bye, Charis. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Good night.